morning, good people. Good morning. So, something that I initially just started to do on Monday from, it's my question I had on Monday was just something that spurred to my mind that day, which spilled over into another day. And then yesterday, someone sent me a message. Well, a guy sent me a message last night, and he wanted me, of course, to anonymously submit his question. Now, I will say this first by way of disclaimer. I always think it's a real big deal whenever a man can come to another man and ask him, a question concerning an issue of his. Because a lot of men, I find that women do this a lot more easier than us men. Women can pick up the phone and they can talk about an issue they're having, whether it be a sexual issue, whatever, and they can just pop it and talk to each other and they can find a resolve. Where men, if we are dealing with something, number one, our ego, our pride is in the way. Then that fear of never being looked at the same from the view of another man's eyes is another part. Because with men, it's a lot of stuff dealing with competition and being competitive, and you kind of, it's just the male ego is something else. But anyway, the point I was saying is to this person, I take my hat off to them for asking me to ask a sensitive question to you all on his behalf. And this is a married person, and he asked me to ask this question because it's been really, really, really hard on him, and he sees that time to time I do these questions and people respond so well. So he wanted to know if I chime this in with you all, he's going to be looking, from what he told me, he'll be looking as well, but he wants me to ask you guys this question, and we're going to go on from there. All right. He's been married, he just told me, over 15 years. He wanted me to answer these questions last night, but I told him if you want me to bring the question up, I'd rather deal with it right here on the show if he didn't mind. Not the show, but the live. So to make a long story short, here's the deal. He's been married for over 15 years, and he's become totally, he's really depressed. He's really kind of discouraged because he feels as though, at least within the last 10 years, that the sexual relationship between him and his wife is really bad. Now, here's the other part. He didn't put no onus on the woman. I always like to say it's two people there, so what's really happening? But he says he's been having an issue satisfying his wife. And now, I told him, I said, the only thing I will give you is this. I said, you are fortunate enough to have a woman to tell you that. I said, a lot of women, sometimes men will, a lot of men have married women, that the women know good and well the man don't satisfy him, but they married him because he's nice, he's brother this, he's been faithful, he's been this, that, and the other, he's been working down for the city for 50, 30 years, so he's dependable, he's all this. But sexually, it just ain't right. But people find ways to cope however they cope. But nonetheless, I told him, I said, she told you, so that's half the battle. I said, so the rest is going to be up to you, communication, what y'all decide to do together, whatever. And so his issue is, he says, he got a little vivid. He said, it's quiet, it's non-responsive, it's just, it feels like an act, and it's over, and then they just resume life. Nobody says a word, but obviously there's no release for her. But he says often there's a release for him, and it's just left there like that. And so here's my thought. The one thing I would say to him on that, when it comes to we talking about bad sex or unfulfilled sex, my first question would be, did it start out that way? Well, like, it may be off now, but was it ever on? That's the major question. Was it ever on? If it was on before, like if the potential is there, if it was on, then the issue is you need to find somehow, you all have to talk, maybe get in front of a counselor and tried to reach this place of where things broke down to try to figure out how to put it back together. Because there's some sort of breakdown if it was ever on, period. He never led me on to think that. He never mentioned, most guys or women will tell you if something is breaking down sexually, they'll say it used to be. He didn't mention it used to be. He just said it's not good, and he feels that he's not performing as a husband. So here's the other side. So if it was never on before, the other side of it is you got to look at some other truths about it. So it could be a performance issue. It could be an equipment, you get my drift, an equipment issue. It could be an issue of how somebody treats you. Sometimes a woman will shut down on you if you don't necessarily treat her right. Or you've been treating her really terribly or horribly. Sometimes her body just won't respond. That's one. And another, because honestly, let's just be for real. A conflict, the difference in how long a conflict lasts, and when I say conflict, I'm saying conflict in the sense of a relationship, a struggle. Because for a woman that's unsatisfied, it's a conflict. And so the difference in the length of that conflict, it has to do with what potential she sees in the sex with you. If she don't see the real potential in that sex, it just doesn't look too well. But nonetheless, here's the thing. I've heard people say, oh, it's not all about the sex, and it's really not. And granted, no, you should have more, you should love your person in more ways than just sex. But it's ironic how we always say that, but the minute sex goes sour, people are in the street. They online, they looking at some secret portal, or they are and people even invest in their little metallic gadgets. So nowadays it's all types of materials, these electronic things, whatever the things, the interim pleasures, whatever people do. But when people aren't satisfied, they get angry. And today what makes it even harder is so many outlets of options due to all of these things. One click, out a click of a button, you can have this person or this, that, and the other, or secret rendezvous over here. So people do what they do to get satisfied. So I told him, I said, half the battle is that the fact that she's talking to you, period, and telling you it's not good, is good. Because I said, because either she's going to do one or two things. She's going to tell you it's not good, or she's going to tell him you're not good. So that's just the truth. And so, I think, this is unfortunate. I hate to hear stuff like that, because that's a tough road for any man to travel, to have a woman that you forget about, somebody you dating in the street or relationship with. This is your wife. So to have somebody to be your wife and to have a struggle like this is tough. I mean, heck, look, I don't care, even the greatest porn star on earth is not going to bat a home run every time. I mean, there are times when like I said, I always put myself on the chopping block. There are times you be with your person or whatever, and one day you might think you got your cape on, and the next day you just be like, oh, I hope you're all right, I'm going to sleep. And it just depends. It depends on the person, and depends on the timing. So there isn't this perfect remedy or cure for it. But if it's consistently not good, like the gentleman suggested, that's. I mean, I told him, I said, y'all need to get in front of somebody quickly, some therapist, because for a long time, it's just not women, you all know, women know, for a long time to go unsatisfied, for a long time, it's not a good thing, especially if she feels as though she needs alternative, especially electronic alternatives or battery operated alternatives, or another human being to suffice. It's not a good thing, because that's how doors are opened. Doors are open when nuts are left unlocked. When nuts are left unbolted, somebody can come in there and say, this is already loose, let me unscrew it and insert my wrench, and there we go. And so it's a bad thing. I asked him, I try not to go into the sex question too deep, but I did, because I told him I wanted to deal with it here, but I did ask him, what are some of the other, think about the other good things in your marriage between y'all. What else is good? Like, what else? Okay, the sex part sucks right now, but what else is good? So rally behind the good, keep talking about the sex. But then I thought to myself, you have to try some tricks. Go to the store and become Clark Kent and come home with some glasses and a suit or something. But anyway, no, but just figure out some kind of tricks. You got to do something. You got to be creative by all costs, whatever it takes. You like this? You like that? You like this? You like this? Whatever. You got to figure out something. If it's your wife, you got to figure out something. Unless, if divorce is not an option, leaving is not an option, then guess what? You got to figure out something, because home is where the heart is. And people do not like to go home to a pleasureless house. They just don't. And they may cope and go to sleep and live and go to work and have a long day, but when they decide to turn on that piece, they want to know that piece is functional and it is there. And that's just a fact. People don't like to, it's one thing to have somebody at home that you have a good sex life with, but your lives are busy, you're not to be able to see them as much, to engage as much. That's one thing, but it's another thing to have a person home with you that you are not satisfied with sexually at all. That's an entirely different monster in itself, and that's not pretty. So yeah, so my hat's off to the gentleman that brought this up, because it takes a lot, but you all can by all means go into the comments and please help this gentleman out, especially the women or men, women, help this guy out. For those of y'all that may came on late, the guy he's married, been married for over 15 years. He's very, 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 very down on himself about his sexual performance. He does not please his wife, and so he's at an impasse, and he's just looking for some sort of answers. And so I don't know. I guess he can find a stuck double and say, you go in the house at nighttime and I'll just sit downstairs. But anyway, no, but you had to figure out something. I'm going to talk to him, and I'm going to suggest some people to him. Perhaps I'll send him to Dr. Cheryl. She's into this therapist stuff. I'm going to suggest some folks that he can talk to. Maybe somebody will help you with the answer. But I'm telling you, it's not good. It's not good. It does make me feel good as a man to hear another man dealing with that kind of problem. That's not a good place to be. Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in today. I will chat with you all later. So it's obvious that if I have my own questions I like to ask you all different days, but if you have a question you want me to ask, just inbox and I'll ask the question, and it'll be anonymous and nobody will know who you are, and we'll go from there and take it day by day. So happy Wednesday, and everybody enjoy your day. Have a fabulous time, and may God bless.